RotoGrinders, it's Wednesday, 9 o'clock on the East Coast. You know what time it is. It's the NFL Pick 6 show, week number 7. Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis. John Daigle, 4 for 4. Man, the season long, guys, they warned us. I've seen this pop up on my Twitter several times. You're not going to like week 7. You're not going to like it. Like, how bad could it be? It's bad. It's pretty rough. It's not great, Jakes. 6 teams on bye: Carolina, Cincinnati, Dallas, Houston, the Jets, the Titans. A 10-game main slate. God forbid we get Miami and Philadelphia in the main slate. Unfortunately, it's not happening. That's absolutely the game of the week. Most watchable game. That's on a Sunday night. We have a 10-gamer where the biggest total on the board, John, is the Chargers at Kansas City. That line's already went down a point. It's now down to 47.5. It is our job to put the old lipstick on a pig as far as this slate. Are we excited, Daigle? How do we feel about week 7?
One total in this entire slate has increased since it's initially opened. And we're not even talking about the Steelers and Rams and the primary 3 games, because I wouldn't even know where to start with the Steelers side. So we'll wait till positional plays to talk about that. Otherwise, it's ugly but fun. I haven't yet whittled down like if it's optimal to spend up at quarterback, or maybe just because of 2023 professional football, always spin down at quarterback to take down tournaments. We saw Desmond Ridder and Drake London get there for everyone, whether you played on FanDuel or DraftKings last week. I even had a listener reach out to me because he took down the entire single entry series with a Desmond Ridder double stack on FanDuel last week, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, just because it was so cheap to do that and then fit in all the Dolphins players with your Adam Thielen, Chuba Hubbard run back. So we'll see. A lot to discuss on the slate, except for running backs. I'm hoping y'all can point me in the right direction for that.
Can we find a running back for the Rams that's available to play? It's going to be a fun conversation to have for sure. Rich, your thoughts, overview as far as week 7. It's, there will be football and, there's DFS. We're all playing with the same puzzle pieces, right? We can say that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who knows? Week 1, we were in the same boat that happened last week, where basically every game went under except for 2. And, week 2 ended up bouncing back and there were points scored. So maybe that happens here. It objectively doesn't look great on paper, but, hey, maybe we'll luck box into some things. I mean, overall, the season has just been kind of like that. We talked about it a little bit on the last show. I wrote about it over the summer. We're seeing, the teams are combining to score just 43.4 points per game in the NFL. It's the largest margin, the largest average margin of victory that we've seen in the NFL game since 2014. Underdogs are covering at their lowest rate, so it's like not even fun. Like just like they're like the favorites are just waxing like bad teams. So like I mean, it's not the product isn't very good, man. Like it's not very good right now. So we're gonna try our best, man. But there will be points scored, even no matter how little amount of points are scored this week, how few. Someone's gonna have more than someone else for DFS. Hopefully you're on top.
Speaking of scoring points, DFS-wise, do you want to give a shout-out to our Week 6 Listener League winner? That is JD Shock. JD Shock took that down. JD, get in contact. I assume your name is JD. It'd be weird if it wasn't, but either way, get in contact with me via the Twitter. DM me at DFS _almanac, or, let us know in the comment section here on the old YouTube. Speaking of that, I'm just going to go ahead and drop the link to this week's Listener League contest. $5 to jump in, standard contest, but we sweeten the pot to get to 1 week free. No, 1 month free, a month free of RotoGrinders Premium. And that's not just football. That's not just NFL. That includes college. That includes NBA, which is right around the corner. All the sports, any sport you can think of, the projections, the ownership stuff, the optimizer, all the bells, all the whistles, everything with the exception of NASCAR. That's a la carte. But yeah, jump in there. It's a 100-person tournament. So, and like the 5 of us that partake, including producers and everybody else, we jump in there as well. So you have a pretty good shot to get yourself a month free, because we're not eligible to win. Anything else to say? But by the way, shout out to producer Rob. Speaking of the additional, friends of the show, he took down the contest last week, and he's already given us our movie. We'll discuss the movie later on in the show, and some of us are not happy about it. Rich, you're the one that said that, well, let's let Rob choose, right? Why not? How bad can he be? He only recommended the worst movie in the history of Twitter, and I think it was to John specifically, if I'm not mistaken. It was pretty bad. I hope you didn't watch it. And he, Friday the 13th last week, but one of the 10. But
I mean,
yeah,
we watched Street Fighter on this show. We watched what was it, American Animals. I don't know. Our bar of actually watching good movies is pretty low.
We need to inject some fun though into it. Like Rich and I get like 2 or 3 windows, not even nights, but windows per week to do something enjoyable that does not relate to football. Like I like, don't get me, we'll talk about Calibre, however you pronounce it later, but like we need something fun, Dean. I need to inject something back into this NFL season to like keep my spirits lifted.
I was going to recommend Dewey Cox, which is certainly a lot of fun. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that or not.
Yeah, I think I need a comedy in my life right now, to be honest.
But it wasn't streaming anywhere, and I didn't want to charge anybody $5. So I'm like, yeah. And then I went the completely other direction. And let's see, what's more depressing than the last movie I recommended? Okay, I got it. We'll talk about Caliber later on in the show.
I mean, I actually am sorry after all of Dean's choices. I feel like I feel like you might be having a cry for help, Dean. Like I don't know. I can't tell if like you just keep nudging us further down the rabbit hole. Where I'm like, man, do I need to reach out to Dean and see how he's doing?
You know, the movie I was going to pick for this week until I realized that it's Rob's choice to pick. I was going to pick Whiplash. I don't know if you guys have seen Whiplash or not, but you should.
I love Whiplash.
Okay, again, not necessarily an uplifting film, but a really good one, I think. John, it sounds like you like it. Yeah.
Oh, I love Whiplash. Yeah, that came out the same year as we've talked about how much I love Birdman on this show, and they were both up for best film at the Oscars that year as well.
Yeah, the Birdman take is I thought it looked incredible, and like the way it was shot, like it wasn't all one shot, but like it kind of sort of was, or at least it was pieced together that way. But as far as the story, we'll discuss Birdman another time for sure. But shout out to Michael Keaton. Hey, let's dive in. As far as week 7, John, you were tasked with picking our 3 key games. Thank you for doing so, because I don't think anybody else wanted to do that. And then of course we run it back after that and pick our favorite players position by position with the 7 remaining terrible games. But all right, John, very first game on the board, Detroit. The Lions are good. The Lions are playing at Baltimore. 42.5 is the total. Start wherever you want to start here, John.
I'm hoping this game is fun. One of the ones I will watch and see where the market goes by Sunday morning, because right now conditions are expected to be sloppy out in Baltimore. But if it turns out to be favorable, I think it could be fun for both sides. It's actually a rematch from a couple years ago when the Lions held the Ravens to 17 points, and Aaron Glenn took interviews throughout the week explaining how to stop Lamar Jackson, because the Ravens opened up the first 2 games as like one of the league's most explosive offenses in 2021. And then no one mentioned throughout those interviews that Marquise Brown dropped 2 50-yard touchdowns. Like, Aaron Glenn didn't do anything. Marquise Brown just dropped the ball, and that's why they couldn't score. But the Lions so far have created chaos on defense. They do have a better defense, but this is also their first real test since they allowed 37 points in overtime against Geno Smith and the Seahawks. Because over the last month, they've played Desmond Ridder, Jordan Love, Bryce Young, and Baker Mayfield. And more so, the way this defense has operated this year, which is opposite of last season, it favors Lamar Jackson, because so far the Lions have schemed the 4th highest rate of zone coverage in the league, and Lamar against zone this year has averaged a 71% completion rate for 8.7 yards per attempt. I have no idea, again, if it makes sense to pay up for quarterback in this era of DFS, but if this game like suddenly projects to be juicy, I do think there is Lamar waiting here, and his stacking partners are pretty simple, since Zay Flowers, 25% of the team's targets, and Mark Andrews, 23% since week 2 whenever Andrews got healthy again.
So, when you're always asking about tight end and saying, well, whatever the optimizer says on a Wednesday night, that's what we're going to play with our tight end carousel.
They said Kyle Pitts last week, baby. Locked in.
Dalton Schultz and Kyle Pitts, the optimizer is just nailing it right now.
Just guide me there, North Star.
It's been smashing so far, in a small sample. But Andrews paying up for Andrews this week is hitting Wednesday night, right? 52%.
Here's my question though, right now with optimals. Yeah. How many are giving you Zach Evans?
Zach Evans is getting hit in optimals, and that's probably not going to work out.
Yeah, and that's what I think is the big problem for optimals at this stage of the week.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's the grain of salt, that kind of thing, right?
We'll talk about Zach Evans, I'm sure, but I can tell you what, I could on Wednesday at 9 Eastern, I'm leaning towards playing 0 Zach Evans.
I just realized the very first optimal has 2 tight ends, not just Mark Andrews, but Luke Musgrave as well. So get excited. We know
when you got that Zach Evans money to spend.
And we haven't even touched on Michael Mayer yet. Maybe it's an exciting tight end week. What a fun week. Week 7.
It was 2 weeks ago we had the comeback of tight ends when everyone was good. And then all of the guys, except for Pitts, got there again. But Kittle had 1 catch. Then Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert was okay. I think he had 4 for 50, right? So
but Kittle was perfect. 3 touchdowns followed by 1 catch for 5 yards. Amazing. Absolutely perfect Kittle.
Just ridiculous.
The Kittle coaster.
The Raiders did unleash Mayer, and we'll see how that goes down. He's really cheap. He's actually 2.7 against the Bears. I don't hate that, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting week as it always is. He's going to be in others receiving votes when it comes to tight ends later on in the show, I suppose. And I was going to say Zay Jones, not just Andrews, but Zay Jones is getting. Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is hitting 54% of optimals. He's the number 1 receiver right now on DK at 5.7. It feels like they've risen his price a bit, but it feels like it's just not quite enough. Would you say, Rich, is it fair to say he's separated himself? He's the number 1 guy there in Baltimore?
Yeah, it's pretty clear. The other guys are all kind of rotating. We've seen they're trying to still get, Bateman kind of ramped up. They're playing Nelson Aguilar and they're playing Odell. The other 3 guys are all a consistent rotation. The only guy that stays on the field regularly per dropback is Zay Flowers. Yeah,
and that kind of also, by the way, is how this week is, Rich, because I think this Detroit defense is pretty good. I know people don't really care. You're not always supposed to obsess over defense and try to be defensive agnostic when making lineups sometimes, but that's what's hitting optimals right now on a Wednesday night is 2 Baltimore Ravens against a pretty good Lions defense. Flowers and Andrews. Your take as far as Baltimore? I think Lamar certainly is somebody that you work in your tournaments, but as John was saying, I don't know if you're necessarily spending up a quarterback this week. We'll see. Stay tuned. But he's certainly a guy that could break a slate and go, run for 100 and also throw for a couple as well. Your thoughts as far as the Ravens offense, Rich?
Especially this slate.
Yeah,
for sure. He could get there. A 30-point QB game is definitely going to carry some weight probably if you get it on this game. Because even Josh Allen has the shoulder injury, how much pushback do the Patriots muster? We'll see kind of what's there, and we'll talk about Chiefs, Chargers. But yeah, it's just trying to figure out what both these defenses kind of are. I mean, granted, you could look at anyone's schedule this year and say they haven't played anyone because who's really good. But these 2 teams in particular, there's still kind of some lay of the land to figure out exactly where these defenses are. Neither team has faced a really good quarterback schedule to this point. So maybe there's just an opportunity where both these offenses are going to be a little better than initially assumed because of the defensive metrics that both teams have accumulated versus the offense that they faced. I mean, the Ravens themselves, they're coming off of just facing Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They faced Gardner Minshew at home. They opened with CJ Stroud in his first career start, who's looked good since then. And then Daigle pointed out that the Lions have really not played anyone since week 1 and week 2. So there's a barometer here where neither of these defenses could be as strong as their actual peripheral metrics show in this game. And that could just be kind of good for us. I mean, we saw Goff a little bit even last week, road splits be damned. They couldn't run the football after David Montgomery got hurt. One thing I do think that is kind of true with the Ravens, because it goes back into last year too, is that they are good up front and they do stop the run well. So you figure without David Montgomery, that we do have Jahmyr Gibbs in this game, that it would be more of a signal that the Lions are more pass heavy again. I mean, they were well above pass rate over expectation last week for the first time all season. Goff threw 44 times, by far season high, ended up throwing for 353 yards. So we know that under Ben Johnson, this capable scheme that if we can get a bunch of dropbacks here, there's some opportunity if you believe that, there is a path here where neither of these defenses are quite as good as they show on paper.
Wednesday night, John, where are we at as far as we're assuming Gibbs is going to play? Montgomery almost definitely is out. I know Reynolds also didn't practice. He had a couple body parts, but I assume he's going to be fine. We'll see. Stay tuned. Wednesday night, practice reports. No, it's mostly about Friday, right? That's what we care about. That's more of a, it shows you what's going to happen more likely on the weekends. Running back situation for Detroit, John. What do you got for me? And I guess it's kind of murky, but we're assuming Gibbs is back.
We're assuming Gibbs is back, and I'm really waiting to see if he gets a full practice in on Friday limited participant on Wednesday is a good sign, though, after he didn't practice at all last week. And the good news is, if he is at full, something we'll have to monitor throughout the week. We've already seen this situation without David Montgomery one time this year. And in that game with Jahmyr Gibbs and Craig Reynolds, Jahmyr Gibbs handled 72% of the team's backfield touches, out-touched Craig Reynolds 18-4, and he only had 2 targets but ran 20 routes to Reynolds 8. So we think Gibbs will be pretty much an every down back. And as Reeves alluded to, Ben Johnson is not a stubborn OC. Like, he is willing to come off his offensive scheme if it fits whatever personnel's out there. And without David Montgomery, we saw last week, maybe it was the intention that knowing they couldn't run the ball against Tampa Bay's front 7, maybe that's why they shifted to having like the 10th highest pass play rate in neutral game script last week. But if that's the case this week, it kind of fits what opponents have been doing against Baltimore, because even Baltimore has faced the 7th highest pass play rate on the season. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at here. I think there is a chance we get volume through the air on both sides of the ball. And then, yeah, that would be great, because we think Gibbs, if he's at full strength, does handle every touch.
Rich, your thoughts as far as the receivers? How's our boy Amon-Ra, the Sun God? How's he looking this week? AK and DK. And also wanted to ask about the route participation. Are we getting an increase for Jameson Williams? He's still really, really cheap.
He's in the Marvin Mims zone, man. He's doing the Marvin Mims thing. Unless you, like you said, we get Reynolds being out or something. But he ran 9 pass routes last week. We got the touchdown, but very Marvin Mims outcome for Jameson.
Is he also dying to break out, just like Marvin Mims is? I'm not sure if you saw that quote from Sean Payton, which is he's just trolling people, right? With that,
yeah,
he has to know what he's doing.
I will say the shot. We didn't need Sean Payton back. I don't think we needed him.
Yeah,
I gotta be honest. I don't know. I think we could have done without it. The recycle of Sean Payton.
I don't like the recycling of like old, let's bring in some new blood, bring in some young people.
And nothing he's brought to the table like has been particularly good for Denver either. It'd be one thing if you saw like Denver, like if we could just really blame everything on the Denver defense right now, but we can't, right? Like we can't. So
Russell Wilson is definitely coming off his worst game and a half of the season. But it's not fair because he's still going to get scapegoated at the end of it, not Sean Payton. Whenever
they're playing,
they're
playing. They have a 3-man running back committee now. Little Jordan Humphrey and Brandon Johnson are running more routes than Marvin Mims. I mean, it's a tragedy.
He was cut from the team, right? Was he like off the team for a while, and he still came back and played more? He jumped ahead of Mims.
Little Jordan, a travesty, man.
It's crazy.
Who's hurting their legacy more right now, Russ or Payton?
Russ, for sure. I mean, Russ was tracking to be like a for sure Hall of Famer, and I don't like. Would you say anyone right now think he's like a lock? He was definitely tracking to probably be a Hall of Famer, though.
He's still going to compile a bunch of more yards.
But everyone is in this era. Who isn't going to compile yards?
Yeah, and they still
Matthew Stafford's probably going to have way better statistics than Russ.
He's a Hall of Famer, right? Stafford, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Boy. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. Is it the NFL the easiest Hall of Fame to get? Is the NBA or NFL? Which is the one?
Unless you're a wide receiver. If you're a wide receiver, you can't get in at all. You got to fight tooth and nail.
It's really strange. Yeah, it's what they quantify what a Hall of Famer may or may not be. But
the Broncos still have that $10 million contract to Jared Stidham looming over Russell Wilson, which like tells you we're going to see him eventually too.
Because the thing with Russ is I think you have public perception now, right? Which always hurts people. And I don't think anyone likes Russ anymore. Like he's not fun to root for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Too corny, I guess, is the stigma with him. Kind of phony.
I mean, dude, you cannot air those Subway commercials. Like those Subway commercials, like even if you paid the salary to make those commercials, like you just chalk it as a loss. You cannot air those. They should never come out.
I also think it's kind of not to compare like ourselves to Russell Wilson. I get it, but I think we're also in an era of authenticity. And given how fake a lot of people are on social media, like even Twitter now is diagnosed to only elevate an algorithm, not actual opinions. People can tell if you are being authentic or not at a higher rate. And it's very clear that Russ is a pretty fraud individual. Like maybe he does believe those things he says, but it's certainly not something a real human being would ever say. Like he's the first person AI replaces next year.
Why can't he just genuinely be that guy? Like that,
he might be. I don't know. I don't have a problem with that. I just feel like those Subway commercials. That was it.
That's it. It's just Subway.
Remember the Subway
Logan,
commercials
you
killed
back?
Robert Griffin too. So like that's what happened. Like it just you cannot make Subway commercials. Anyone do not take that endorsement.
Is that the new Madden curse now? The new Madden curse now is the Subway commercials. All right. Who still goes to Subway, by the way? It's a whole. What was the last time you've been to Subway, John?
You haven't even been outside since like July.
You should see my nap schedule these past 2 weeks. Like I can't even get into the sun, man. I'm trying to just survive right now. I'm texting Rich about like just how broken I am midweek. I actually did though live at Subway in college. I wanted to work at Subway just to get discounted sandwiches because I lived on their tuna. Tuna is one of my favorite foods, by the way, Dean. But then come to find out, which, we should have known, but come to find out like the tuna at Subway is one of the biggest scams in all of America. Like it's basically anything but tuna. But, tell 18-year-old me that at Texas A&M. Didn't care, considering I could go get a sandwich for $3.
I worked at a Subway for half a day, and I was like, nah.
What broke you? Why did you let
I tried like a lot of trial and error of working jobs when I was young, but I'll say like bless everyone that works in the food industry. Those are the hardest working people.
Absolutely.
The hardest working people in America are people that work in the food industry. Tip all those people as much as you can every time. Like just absolutely wasn't for me, man. Just I couldn't. I am like too honest, so like I can't like make people sandwiches, man. Like I just can't. I could do it.
You were a sandwich artist for half a day.
You don't want this. This is not what you want. I mean, do you know I just made that tuna 5 minutes ago? You don't want that.
The tuna is fake. I know in Ireland, was it Ireland or somewhere over in Europe, they're talking about the bread not being qualified as real bread because there's too much sugar in it.
Do you remember they had that thing that was made with like the same material that was in yoga mats?
I did not see that.
No, I don't remember
that was a real thing. Like they had to change their bread. Like I don't know how many years ago it was, but that was a real thing.
I know John Oliver did a bit on Subway. If you're curious to see that, you guys probably seen it. I don't know, but he did like 20 minutes on Subway. It was pretty interesting. But this is the kind of things we're derailing the show.
This is called filibustering at week 7.
It's called week 7. 6 teams on bye. Amon-Ra St. Brown is amazing at football.
All right, John, did you give your thoughts as far as the Lions?
No, but again, pretty concentrated targets. Even in these, Amon-Ra St. Brown, remember, got injured in week 2, missed a game with an injury as well, but he's played 4 healthy games this year. He earns targets, but in those 4 healthy games, at least in this era of the Lions offense, 32.5% of the team's targets. Like he just earns all the targets. So you kind of know where to go if you think this game's total goes over. That's something, again, I'm waiting on because I would like to be excited to play this game.
Yeah, I would like to be excited to play any of the games this week. This is certainly, I guess, on the Family Feud board. So like number 4 or something like that. I guess, sure, why not? By default, Rich, you're making a lineup, making one lineup. You're stacking this game up. You starting with you got to start with Jackson over Goff, right? Like you have to if you're shooting for upside. Don't you have to do that?
Yeah, and I don't even think Goff is super cheap, right? Because he's been pretty good.
6'4".
He's 6'4". It's reasonable. You could flirt with the bonus a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I'm still playing Lamar for sure. Yeah, he's a lot more higher price on FanDuel. Jesus, Jordan Love is 7-8 on FanDuel. We talk about Jordan Love
mess around.
Yeah, dude. Jordan Love is the QB 6 on FanDuel. Yeah, they are not playing around. Like they are proactive this year.
Lamar, by the way, hitting FanDuel optimals 30% because he's only 8K over there. He's got his price is pretty much in check, relatively speaking, to the field. Let's see, where is he at? He is 4th most, right? He's just above Love and Goff. So I would take the upside of Lamar, spend a little bit more. But yeah, you got to pinch your pennies on FanDuel. Final word as far as this game, Rich, before we move on and talk about Arizona and Seattle.
No, like Dave said, I'm waiting to see because Gibbs, I mean, as unsexy as he kind of has been, I still think where he's priced on both sites and where the running back landscape is. So we talk a lot about plays on this show, right? Like we don't talk about lineup construction as much, but when you look at the running back position this week, and I just go down the list of like guys that I think could like bury me at running back, and it's a very short list this week. So I think you can definitely, mix in Gibbs as like a core player this week if he's practicing in full. He has the receiving upside. The Ravens have been like kind of more vulnerable to receiving backs out of the backfield than they have against the run. So when you're looking at kind of building out your lineups, my initial thought this week from a top-down perspective is to not really pay for any of these running backs. I mean, Austin Eckler can beat me. Can Josh Jacobs beat me anymore? Like, I mean, I think Josh Jacobs is a pretty okay play this week, but like, it's not like he's super cheap. Like, he's not priced where his production has been. I should say that. And then you've got Walker, who at least if he doesn't score a touchdown, maybe doesn't bury you, right? Like if you run into
but
a game,
can.
But he can, yeah. But but Walker's a guy that also needs probably 2 touchdowns to absolutely bury you. So those are like really it though. Like those are the 3 guys. Like, am I worried about James Cook beating me at this point when Latavius Murray is kind of coming for him? Bijan Robinson is not being used in the red zone. Arthur Smith has openly come out about kind of like keeping his workload kind of where it is. He's getting fewer than 60% of the backfield touches. Like he definitely has the talent to bury you, but like, is the opportunity there? So, I mean, I look at Isaiah Pacheco, I think is a really solid price point, but like, is Isaiah Pacheco burying you?
He's going to be really popular, and yeah, if he does really well, it's not going to go well for you. I think he's going to be very popular by the end of the week, as it stands right now.
Aaron Jones is like the one guy, if he's practicing in full, like given his layout, like there's definitely like a path to where like he could get like 20 to 30 points, but like it's not great. The running back landscape is not great, and like you can just say, all right, well, screw it, I'll just pay for Eckler, right? Like that's either the move to do, or you just go and you pay like a couple of these mid guys that can catch the football.
John, you got anything else as far as Detroit, Baltimore, or shall we move on?
I think that's about it. We probably don't talk a lot, and we still do a little bit, sprinkle it in. But yeah, lineup construction is just kind of hard to figure out by Wednesday night. That's why this is a first look show where we're at with our lineups. And then sometimes we can get an early glance on it. But I think because we all do different shows from Friday on, I think in our own little separate lives, we start understanding a lot more by Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm looking at the top of the receiver position, and I think I definitely want to try to get 2 of those guys in.
Right. Still scared of those, yes.
Cooper Kupp can bury you for sure. Keenan Allen can bury you. Diggs can definitely bury you. But all right, let's talk about Arizona and Seattle. We kind of teased Walker there. Seattle, home favorite there versus Arizona. 44.5 is the total. Rich, start wherever you want to start as far as Arizona and Seattle. If you want to pick up on Walker, by all means, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we can. I mean, if the Arizona defense literally has, like, over the course of the start of the season, kind of revealed their cards that they, definitely no pun intended there, that they are kind of who we thought they were. I mean, 37% of all passing plays against Arizona have gone for a first down or touchdown. That's 31st in the NFL. 31% of all rushing plays against Arizona have gone for a first down or touchdown. That's the highest rate in the league. It's really kind of a pick your poison spot. The one thing I think is interesting from this game from a top-down perspective is something I kind of overlooked with the Rams last week, is because the Rams didn't play in a lot of neutral or positive game script coming into that game last week, and they just turtled in the second half of that game. They just ran the ball down the Cardinals' throats. And there's definitely a spot here where you look at it from Geno Smith, especially in this slate. It's like, man, I do want to play Geno. But then you kind of look at like what happened last week and you're like, well, what has Seattle been doing anytime that they've had a lead all season? Anytime they've led outside of the fourth quarter, they're 27th in the NFL in drop back rate. Like, this is a team that still will line it up and hand the ball off to Kenneth Walker a lot if they're up on the scoreboard. So it does kind of like pull a little bit of recoil here when you kind of look at what happened in that game. Maybe you don't go too crazy on like Seattle ownership, but it is kind of like if you have Seattle guys, it's kind of all hands on deck because this Arizona defense, they do not rush the passer. They do not play pass defense. They do not stop the run. There's nothing objectively they do well. They kind of just sit back and let you do whatever you want to them on offense.
John?
I think Rich pretty much summed it up. That's why I wanted to talk about this game, just because Cardinals players across the board, even if we don't think the passing game gets there because they're leaning on the running game, everyone's going to get played in this one. Like, it is no secret now by this time of the week that even last week, out of their bye, Jackson Smith and Jigba did get a post-bye rookie bump because we talked about this on last week's show too. Seattle was 25th in 11 personnel, 23rd in pass play rate from 3 wide sets, 11 personnel. They come out of their bye 10th in 11 personnel usage and 12th in pass play rate. And that was a 1-score game throughout. It was a 1-point game at the half. So that was practically neutral game script throughout that one. Cardinals also allowing a league high 10.7 yards per catch to opposing slot receivers. And that's where Smith and Jigba, the cheapest of their 3 wide receivers, has been leading the team in routes run. So Like, I think everyone's going to try to get here at some point. So it's just a matter of how you play the Seahawks against one of the league's softest defenses, not necessarily can they get there, because I think there's a chance for everyone to get here. Even Tyler Lockett, like, is getting targets where we want them. Like, Tyler Lockett leads the team in red zone targets. Also, he leads the entire league in eight end zone targets, and he's only turned one of them into one touchdown. So there's a lot of ways for everyone to get here. That's why it's exciting.
Trey McBride, did he kind of break out a little bit last game? I feel like he got a little bit more run. I think he had the most targets he's had the entire season. He's 2.6 on DK. That's why I'm bringing him up. Does anybody have a take? Yeah.
He got a bump, a season high 48% route rate. Zach Ertz ran just 2 fewer routes. So you would imagine, like, if that trend follows the Michael Mayer trend, because that's kind of what happened for Mayer a couple weeks ago, was to barely outrun Austin Hooper and then take it over altogether, then it is a game where they feature or they use Trey McBride more. The issue is, though, man, like, these are just prayer yards for Marquise Brown, too. Like, Josh Dobbs, the last 2 games, has kind of just become a pumpkin again. And it sucks because he was such a good story. 56% completion rate in his last 2 games. He's completed just 9 of 28 throws, 10 yards downfield these past 2 weeks, too. It's been ugly. And so, like, we can chase the targets and the opportunity. And at 2,600, who's to say? Just throw McBride in your lineup as a run back. Who cares? But are we going to get there eventually? I don't know.
Kyler's coming, baby. He's coming.
I mean, is he though? Like, they're 1-5. They're working on 1-6. Why? What incentive is there? Why bring him back?
Why wouldn't you?
Because I mean,
tell me the reason why you wouldn't play him.
Because what if you accidentally win a couple of games if you're Arizona? Well, he's still not going to be 100%, right? So
but you still, like, you're not even tracking for the first pick, first of all, at this point,
or the second,
or the second pick, and you have a guy already under contract. Like, they're like you don't have to punt. Like, that's the thing. The Cardinals are in a position where they don't have to punt.
Okay. Well, they're wait, hold on. They're not tracking for the number 1 pick, or aren't they in the mix? Is there a team that has no wins? Oh, the Panthers, right? The Panthers are winless. Is somebody else I'm missing? Is there anybody else that's winless?
The Panthers have Carolina. No win.
Yeah,
the Bears have 1 and 2 right now, right?
Yeah, Bears are number 1 and number 2 pick, and Tyson. I don't know if you heard, amazing. Tyson Bagent is under center this week, so still tracking for the number 1 and number 2 picks. Yes.
You best believe a Tyson Bagent stack's getting played in that listener league.
I learned of Shepherd University this week. I don't know if you guys have heard of Shepherd University, but I did not know it existed, and that's where he went. I never even heard of that person, and I think he was undrafted, but.
He was good in the preseason. Like, he was the QB4. He fought his way up to be the team's exclusive QB2. But also, like, we saw Dorian Thompson-Robinson look fun in the preseason. It's a totally different animal when you're playing in the NFL.
What do you think? I know you're talking about that. Rich, you mentioned Kyler. He's practicing now. They said the earliest he comes back is week 8. DFS, we care about this week and this week only. But when do you, like, realistically think he comes back? If he comes back, I guess he's.
Yeah, probably around there. Week 8 was like everyone, like it was the 10th month mark of, like, his, recovery. Obviously for him, it's going to be a situation where, like, we're not going to, like, really be excited to play him. He's probably not going to be mobile. He's not going to be running around coming back. But just like Daigle said, I mean, the past 2 weeks, no one's completed fewer of their passes below expectation than Josh Dobbs. Like, it's fun. It's like we want to root for Josh Dobbs in the start of the season, but, like, there's a reason Josh Dobbs has been on 100 NFL teams to this point. And it's, Hollywood Brown's getting all these targets, like all these targets are coming away. But the last 2 weeks, 29% of his targets have been inaccurate targets, the highest rate for any wide receiver. Like, I mean, he missed him on 2 long balls last week that, like, we got to hit, man. We got to have those, especially in the era where, like, man, if you score a 60-yard touchdown, dude, like, you're cooking.
Yeah, those and Justin Herbert's throws on Monday night, man, just wide open, sailing.
Plus, you look at this matchup, we're trying to figure out, too, at Seattle, their defense, now that they got Tariq Woolen back and healthy, Devin Witherspoon looks legit. Like, so, like, now that they've got both of these guys on the field, they've been really good. Obviously, when you face Daniel Jones, 2 weeks ago, and then this version of the Bengals where we still don't really know what they are, there's more to figure out along the way here. But the Seattle defense could be quietly something kind of the back half of the year.
Rich, you got to pick a run back on the Arizona side. Who's your run back?
Hollywood by default. It's just, I mean, he's still really cheap. He got 11 targets last week. Like, you just throw him at the wall and you hope that some magic happens, right? They didn't change his price.
Yeah, we're not messing with this nonsense as far as running back. They're still all cheap, but I guess all three are playing.
No, dude. They played Damian Williams. Like it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Jonathan Gannon found himself quickly in the can't trust tree.
All right. We got anything else as far as this game? Anything we want to hammer home here, John, as far as Arizona and Seattle, or shall we move on?
Just
well,
like the Chargers,
play it, right? Like Walker's going to be the chalk piece, right, of the game.
I think so.
Given the running back landscape, I feel like people are going to get to Walker first. So large field, we do Geno stacks. We just hope that they get some pushback or they just keep their foot on the gas.
Yeah, Lockett and JSN, man. That's pretty fun this week. JSN's also really cheap on FanDuel. It allows you to stuff in all these other expensive wide receivers we're trying to play.
JSN's 3.9, I believe, on DK. What is his FanDuel price? Man. Trying to find it here on the fly. Is it somewhere like 5.2? Like 5.2?
I thought it was 4.7. I could be wrong though. Maybe it is in the 5.3. Double check that.
Or if it's 4.7, that's pretty juicy. 4.9. I'm seeing 4.9.
4.9. That's it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, on FanDuel, that's like cheaper than Wandale, who can't get there anyways.
Yeah, anything less than 5 on FanDuel that has got a shot is kind of gold. All right, the last game, the biggest total as far as this week, it's the Chargers at Kansas City. Chargers getting 5.5 at KC. 47.5 points is the total here, John. I suspect this game's going to be pretty popular. I don't know if Hardman's going to be available for Kansas City. I don't think he's in the pool just yet. Maybe stay tuned. That may change because what the Jets were on bye, right?
Right. Yeah. So he's not even in. Yeah, he wasn't even in it.
Yeah, they might add him in there. I'm not sure if it matters.
I think DraftKings has a history of going back and adding. Sure. FanDuel typically does not.
I've not gotten the email just yet from DraftKings, but they might midweek. They'll add a new player to the pool and
set those notifications, baby, for McCall Hardman.
You don't want to miss out, man. It's the old Remember Me game for sure. That's an indictment on everybody else for Kansas City. It's not they love Mecole Hardman, right? It's just the rest of the pieces are so bad. Man, it's what a disaster case. They're like boring now. Also, they're like, why are they not fun anymore? Well, why are the Chiefs not fun, Rich? What is it about
because they botched kind of the repulling of that wide receiver group, man. No one's really standing out. Rashee Rice is kind of still like popping. He's in the like kind of still like he's better than Mims in terms of opportunity.
He's like rich man's Mims.
Yeah, but he hasn't quite gotten over the hurdle, and I just don't know if they're ever going to play a guy with that rotation, But with Justin Watson getting hurt, it does open up a little bit of a path. When Watson left the game, he ran a route on 60% of the dropbacks, 59.3. So just under 60%. Like if we can get Rashee Rice at like a 60% route rate against this Charger secondary, at least we're working with something, right? Like, so that's at least playable. And then like they still keep using like Kadarius Toney. Obviously, Kadarius Toney's not a DFS play, but like he has like a legit role in this team that's very specific because when he's on the field, he gets the ball, but he consistently has been like that red zone jet motion guy. And we'll see if Mecole Hardman coming back, if like that impacts that. But since they have acquired Toney anytime, because no one uses motion as much as the Chiefs, except for the Dolphins inside the 10-yard line. And it's always Toney like on that. So like he gets kind of like those cheapy touchdowns, like the one he had last Thursday. But then like they're just using Marquez Valdes-Scantling as like a chess piece. Like he exists to just clear stuff out for the rest of the guys. That's why he consistently doesn't lose playing time. Because structurally,
what is his target rate right now?
What's the number? 6.6 target rate for route run. By far the lowest of any player that's run that many routes. Because structurally, because the types of defenses the Chiefs see, right? Like they went through that phase where they saw just like all that 2 eye stuff, and they literally just got a guy. That's all why him and Justin Watson play so many snaps. They just run downfield. That's like their role in the offense to clear stuff out. So he's not coming off the field. He's good. So like if there was ever a week for him to kind of luck box into something, maybe this week because the Chargers, they're 29th in the NFL in, receptions allowed on throws 20 yards or further to wide receivers. Maybe the old exerciser catches one this week.
John, your favorite dart here as far as the Chiefs receivers, Rice, Moore, Toney, MVS, they're all really cheap. Rice 4.7, but like the rest of them are in the 3s. Maybe overpriced, I guess, the way some of the output's been out there. But who's your favorite amongst this? I don't know, this receiving core here for the Chiefs.
Rich already said it. It can only be Rice. Kadarius Toney even had that pick play touchdown on Thursday, and Rice scored more fantasy points because it's only little gadgety Mickey Mouse routes for Kadarius Toney, so you can't take him seriously. It's Rice or Travis Kelce, honestly. Like, we keep trying to predict and bury Travis Kelce, and a lot of his rates are down significantly compared to last year, but this dude is once again averaging 3.3 more fantasy points than the next closest tight end. Like, he's inevitable. And today he practiced in full for the first time since his knee injury. So it's like, why even keep denying it? You know how this works. If you can fit it, maybe you can't, since Michael Mayer to God is way down there in salary. But if you could fit it, Travis Kelce is just right here.
How much are you prioritizing it? Like, how many lineups would you have to make in order to make sure you get one Kelce share?
Oh, I think even in 3 max, I would try to get one out of 3 with Kelce. But I like playing this game a little differently because I think I like Kelce and Chiefs defense correlation, given how cheap the Chiefs defense are and how much I question, just me, the over in this game. Because to jump on the other side, like, remember, these teams have played 5 times now with Justin Herbert under center, and none of those games were decided by more than 6 points. But what's happening with the Chiefs right now since week 2, since they got Chris Jones back, was the same thing that happened as to why, like, the Chiefs getting points were one of my biggest bets in the Super Bowl last year. Also, when I was vomiting out of both ends, despite Dan Back's kindness at a hotel room in Nashville while y'all partied together, it's the fact that, like, this defense with Chris Jones has been amazing. 13.4 points per game allowed since week 2, second best in both EPA per play and drop back success rate and limiting opposing quarterbacks, and third highest rate of pressures that they've converted into sacks in that time. Also, it's only a 2-game sample against the Raiders and Cowboys defense that has been quite injured, but the Chargers offense has also lacked some pop without Mike Williams. And I personally think it's because we've lost, like, their primary downfield threat. In this little 2-game sample, with Chargers are 28th in yards per play, Herbert is 1 of 8 on throws 20 yards downfield, and he's completed just 57% of his passes the last 2 games. So I am curious, like, if this game even has the push, if it's worthy of the over, honestly.
I was told Quentin Johnson was going to get unleashed with the the absence of Williams. Is that just not happening, Rich?
No, it didn't have. He did not get the post-bye rookie bump.
Neither did Charbonnet.
He actually ran fewer routes than he did the week before the bye. It looked like going into the bye that it was like, all right, he kind of hit the bye on a positive note because he ran a route on 71% of the dropbacks. Then he came out of the bye and only ran a route on 48% of the dropbacks, didn't have a catch. So he also he's not even one of these guys like we've talked about with like Mims or Rashee Rice that's even like flashed on the small amount to be like, we're just hoping he's out there. Like, it's not like he's done anything with like the snaps he's gotten. And, Josh Palmer just missed a pretty big game on Monday, minus a few flags. Obviously they cheated on those plays. Although I'm not sure illegal man downfield should be the penalty it is in the NFL, like to the extent it is. That didn't impact that play. But I didn't have any Josh Palmer. I'm just talking about illegal man downfield. It feels like it's like crazily high in the NFL right now. We need to. I don't know if that was like a point of emphasis in the meetings or something, but I feel like they're calling this shit like twice a game for no reason. But I digress. But yeah, Daigle said like these teams have played really good football games. Definitely want to get some Mahomes in this game. He's thrown multiple touchdowns every game since Brandon Staley has been there with the Chargers. He's thrown 3 or more in all but one of those games. So definitely some Mahomes, Kelce, maybe some Mahomes, Rashee Rice, maybe I'll double it, in some spots. But even Herbert, like in these matchups, even against Spags has gotten there. Herbert was a disaster last year for fantasy football, and he was still a top 10 quarterback both games against the Chiefs. Like, something about these teams like bring the best out in each other. And I hope that I don't eat those words because we're just starving for good football. But man, they played some absolutely hot football games like the last couple of years. And I just hope we get it again. So I'm kind of rooting for it to happen. And Herbert, like his peripherals have been bad since lost Mike Williams, but like, dude, the opportunities were there Monday. Like, it's not like they didn't have guys open downfield. Like, there was self-sabotage a little bit on his part. I mean, Keenan Allen probably scores on the one for sure. He's got one guy to basically cut back in the middle of the field against if he catches that football. I mean, the opportunities were there, though, for big plays. So I don't necessarily know, like, how much I want to stock, like, the loss of Mike Williams not like completely just, like, shrinking this offense and phoning in because they had plays against that Cowboys defense last week. And we know the Chiefs are going to be aggressive, right? Like Spags is aggressive. He's been aggressive in all these matchups against Justin Herbert. They play a lot of man coverage. They try to bring a lot of blitzes. So there will be opportunities to make plays.
Are we going to go all first take and like rehash the Tua versus Herbert conversation? Are we going to do that?
We don't need to do that.
We got to know, man. What side are you on this week?
It's the same thing. We're doing the same thing with Stroud. Like, you can have like a great opinion on Stroud, and I had Stroud as my QB1, but like you can also pump Stroud's bags without like tearing down Bryce Young. Like, that's allowed to happen.
Oh, you're not going to be a good guest for first take, sir.
I know.
You don't know how that game is played.
But every Stroud takes there's like a point and laugh situation at the Panthers. Like, sure, like I would have taken Stroud if I was them, but like we can't just like base like Stroud. Like Young's played really well the past 2 weeks in the context of like this situation. Like, there's still hope for him too.
How do we feel about Chalky Pacheco? This is where we're at. I think Pacheco is going to be fairly popular. Obviously, Wednesday night, who knows? We'll see how the chips fall. But he looks like he's well positioned here. John, I know you mentioned talking about Kelsey with the KC defense. You certainly can run Pacheco with the KC defense. You can play both. You can play Pacheco and Kelsey in KC defense. If you want to do that, sure, why not? Where's your stance as far as presumably Chalky Pacheco?
Getting the touches still. Even these last 3 games, over 73% of the team's running back touches in each of them, not to mention coming off a career high, 78% of the Chiefs' backfield touches. But also, it's kind of like Rich alluded to. Like, yes, he had a season high 6 targets this past week, but really, like, even the yardage, the pop, it's nothing that scares you. Like, unless he scores 2 touchdowns, Pacheco doesn't really bury you at his price. FanDuel brought him up a little more this past week. He's been over 70 rushing yards in only 1 game so far this year. And when you watch him too, he even looks like a guy who doesn't often run for 70 rushing yards. So I don't, chalk Pacheco, for all the reasons we discussed earlier, I definitely get to Gibbs in the same range well before him every time.
By the way, John, in the chat, they want to know, and what's up, chat? Kindly hit that like button, subscribe, turn on those notifications, do all those things. We appreciate those that listen to us live on a Wednesday night. J3 says, can we ask the bottom host? That's you, John.
Oh, yeah.
What are you drinking out of that large green stripe can? What is the slate? What is it driving you to drink? What are you drinking today?
I usually try to hide it in a coffee cup or a mug, even though everyone knows there's always alcohol in the coffee cup or mug. So I don't even know why I try anymore, like Rich right now. But shout out to a local small brewery in Chicago, Hopewell, out in Logan Square. Very good hazy IPA. That's what I drink. I love hazy IPAs. So if you ever want to get me a gift, we don't need money. We don't need Venmos. Just like say, hey, you can sleep on my couch and I'll buy you hazy IPAs. That's all I need in life.
That's another thing we don't debate enough. IPAs. What's your stance on IPA? People love that. I don't know why it's a big Twitter thing, but it
just
is.
Drink everything. It's like having a Bryce Young take. Just drink everything. Who cares? Like, it's all good.
You're allowed to like what you like. That's my motto.
Yeah, that seems pretty straightforward.
Imbibe, man. We can all imbibe together.
Rich, what do you got? Anything else as far as this game we need to stress? Eckler is certainly fine, right? He's going to cost you. Is that where you want to spend
all the core pieces here are really expensive, right? Like they all have to get there if you pay for them. You got to get big games from all these guys. Mahomes at his price, Kelsey at his price, Eckler at his price, Keenan Allen at his price. Plugging those guys in, like they've got to be big. You're talking about big games from like these kind of salaries. Definitely exists if you look at like kind of the history between these two teams. Keenan Allen going back into last year, he's been a wide receiver 1 scorer in 7 of his past 11 games. He's led the position outright in scoring three of those times, which is a significant amount. When you see like of a 11-week sample, a wide receiver is the high scoring wide receiver 3 different times. That's significant. He probably could have got there on Monday too. If, like I said, a couple of those balls would have been on.
Wasn't his fault. Yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe some of the ancillary guys you look at, like I said, Josh Palmer, like just isn't going away. So his price is still palatable on both sites where you can kind of fit him in with the Rashee Rice of the world. But if you're stacking this game, obviously it's hard to onslaught because the core pieces are so expensive and you need big games out of all of these guys.
Yeah, I was thinking about the tight ends for the Chargers side. You're talking about Johnson's like not even really getting on the field. Are they running? Is that 11? 2 tight ends, 2 receivers.
They cannibalize each other though. Not one of them has had more than 47 yards in a game. The only good games any of them have had are attached to a touchdown. Like they're basically touchdown or bust guys at this point.
Yeah. But that's kind of what you're shooting for with a lot of these tight ends.
Right.
So
Yeah. If you're stacking this game, I think it makes sense to if you're playing a Herbert stack that maybe you would do that if you're doing a Palmer, Palmer maybe tight end. But I mean, like I said, Herbert's like the one guy that doesn't have to go like super nuclear. The good thing is both these quarterbacks are running a lot more than they have. Mahomes is tracking to like smash his career high in rushing yards at this point, which is really good because it buys you a little bit, like you said, Dean, like those touchdown equity. Because typically you look at Mahomes and you're like, well, he has to throw 3 touchdowns, but he doesn't necessarily have to because if he's going to run for 50 yards, you got that. And we've seen Herbert already is a game with multiple rushing touchdowns this year. So, I mean, both these guys do add a little bit more with their legs than kind of the typical, like where they've been in the past with their career. Like Herbert didn't run at all last year after he got hurt.
Are they designing more runs for Mahomes, or it's just sort of like he's scrambling more? Or do we know if that's just like sort of improv stuff?
You just can't sack him, man. Like that's.
Yeah. John,
it's also why Lamar probably gets lost in this slate. And Mahomes and Herbert are both easier on FanDuel. On DraftKings, when you start having to fit that extra slot in and like go down all the way down to 3K at wide receiver, which is also why I think just structurally people will get to Zach Evans too. Not that he does anything, but a 4K running back that may have a chance for touches. They're going to get there. It's just tough. Like it's really tough on DraftKings to pay up for these guys.
It didn't sound like, I don't know if you guys heard the presser from McVay. It didn't sound like Evans was like going to play this week. I didn't get it. Did you guys hear this or no?
Darrell Henderson and McCole Hardman, like they kind of walk back into the same exact playbook. Nothing has changed since then. Puka Nacua is playing this little Robert Woods role too, and still earning targets. Like those are the only 2 guys that matter for the Rams. So of course these guys have outs. Like they just show up. McCole Hardman even last year was just a gadget player. 4 of his 5 touchdowns came within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Like he just only got there because he scored 52% of his fantasy points on touchdowns. He doesn't break any big plays, but they know the playbook. So they'll probably just walk right in.
I mean, I think there's a clear sign with the guys they signed because the one thing that Zach Evans, who's a 6th round rookie, did not do in college at all at TCU or Ole Miss was play in pass protection. And I think that's the biggest, largest signal of the guys they signed is this is a passing offense. Like they haven't run the ball really effectively outside of the second half of that Arizona game at all. So like they know they're going to have to throw the football against Pittsburgh. You want Zach Evans, a 6th round rookie who's done no pass pro in his career, to block TJ Watt, to like come in and help, like chip on TJ Watt. Like that, I mean, to me, the biggest sign is like he's just not going to be involved in any type of passing situations. And this team is probably going to have to throw the football this week against that defense. So that's why I think it's hard to go down the Zach Evans rabbit hole in terms of trying to project how much he's going to play. It's the same thing kind of with like DeMercado last week, right? Like, is he really going to get like those opportunities? I think it's hard to really have faith in it because he's never done it in college. And I think that's the big signal right away that they weren't expected to be this far down to him as kind of that front end guy. That's why Royce Freeman could play. It could be Darrell Henderson. It could be Myles Gaskin, because in those passing situations, I don't think Zach Evans is going to be out there.
I mean, go a step beyond that. And the last 2 weeks with Cooper Kupp, the Rams have targeted their running backs at the lowest rate in the league. Like no one's getting targets because it's only Puka and Kupp. Because why else would you target anyone else when you have Puka and Kupp?
Hey, John, you didn't sound like you loved this Kansas City Charger game. If I was hearing you right, it sounded like you kind of like the under. What game is the highest total scoring game on the main slate, if not Kansas City and the Chargers?
It's this one, I believe, still, right? Despite the fact that the total's coming down.
No, I'm saying which is when the results are played, not the actual like Vegas number.
Oh,
or you think this is the game?
Oh, I don't know, because I'm kind of worried about the Packers Broncos game too. I
mean, you look at it right now. Kyren Williams is 3rd in the NFL in running backs and pass block snaps,
and he was he was a very good pass blocker in college too.
Do we think Zach Evans is doing that?
That's the quote that stood out the most. Not to avert from your question, Dean, but when McVay was talking about Darrell Henderson, he said like he's familiar with the playbook and he gets his nose dirty in pass pro. And it's like, oh, well, that's why you brought him in, because like this dude's going to be in there on pass snaps to literally, like Rich said, basically try to take on TJ Watt. We'll talk about Stafford and then when we get there, because I think there are reasons to be high on the Rams offense, but also like Stafford, Kupp, those are pivots off of Zach Evans. Then you don't have to play the running backs.
Henderson not in the player pool on DK, unless I'm missing something.
Well, he wasn't in the NFL.
Who was the guy?
Kind of a problem.
Who was the guy? Was a defensive, maybe an offensive lineman when Monday Night Football did the introduction? It says off the couch. Who was that guy?
Justin Pugh, yeah.
There you go.
I mean, that's the other thing too, is like the state of these offensive lines across the league, man, just a nightmare. And we could see it on Sunday night again too. If Lane Johnson doesn't play and the Eagles are out their entire right side of the line, the second half of that Jets game, Jalen Hurts was having a really tough time of pressure in that game. So, I mean, the offensive lines, the state of offensive lines in the NFL is probably at one of the all-time lows, man.
And quarterbacks.
You're saying the one good game might not be fun now? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's definitely going to be fun. The Dolphins are playing Dean. I refuse to believe that game's going to bust. I'm just saying, like, the second half of that game when Lane Johnson was out, like, because their right guard's already been missing Cam Jurgens. So, like, I mean, it was tough. Like, when Lane Johnson left that game, Fields was pressured on 50% of his dropbacks from that point on, and his yards per attempt plummeted. Granted, it's the Jets, not the Dolphins, too. So, grain of salt with that. But, yeah, I mean, if they're out that whole right side, Lane Johnson's a trooper, though, man. If that dude can stand, he's going to try to play.
We're doing fun power rankings. Is there any acceptable answer beyond Miami? It's Miami and that's it, right? Anybody else?
No, dude. Miami's played two good offenses and they've gotten absolutely rolled both of those times. They've given up. They gave up 38 points to the Chargers and 48 points to the Bills. Like,
fun games.
Sure, but power rankings wise, like. We seen them, like, they haven't punched up against anybody yet. Like, we can't like them.
I'm not saying who's good. I'm
you're about fun? The fun ranking?
Fun. Dolphins are by far.
Jesus Christ, dude, they're in another stratosphere.
It's a universe.
Like
Rich says, we're universes removed. Yeah. Dolphins are fun, and then the next universe over has another team, like the 49ers.
Who's 32nd? New England? Who's the least?
The Giants.
Giants.
The Giants haven't scored a touchdown in 35 straight drives.
That is
even though we're playing Darius Slayton this week. We'll get there.
So yeah, Johnny in chat saying Miami's not the best team. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what we're doing.
That's how I'm sorry. You said power rankings, and my initial brain thing was just like, power rankings, whatever.
I do have my biggest bet of the season on the Eagles, but I also got Eagles -1. It's already up to 2.5. So
that's pretty.
Because I need that game to be good, though, Dean. I'm definitely not trying. I do just please. That game can't fail, man.
Well, if it's not good, at least Trick or Treat is going to save your week for sure. The movie
both those defenses are pretty banged up too. I mean, the Eagles have just been like, dude, every week, like, they lose a guy at this point. They've already played 15 different defensive backs this year, which is pretty wild. Xavier Howard left the game last week, so if Xavier Howard's not out, against kind of the grown man Arthur Juan has been balling, like that game, it's got to get there. It's got to get there.
When is Ramsey coming back? Do we know? Is there an ETA for that?
All I've heard is he's ahead, but
yeah, that's what they said, ahead of schedule. But like, it's still a torn ACL, like this offseason, not even last year. So who knows?
All right, let's run it back. Let's give our favorite players position by position amongst the games we've not yet talked about. Before we do that, we do want to shout out our sponsor. Our sponsor is not Subway, actually. It's Ticketmaster. More memories are made when you're there for live NFL action. And when you need tickets, Ticketmaster, they got you covered. The official marketplace of the NFL. Ticketmaster gives you more ways to find your perfect seat. Their interactive seat map gives you 360-degree previews of your section to make sure you have the best view of those pivotal plays. And if your plans happen to change, Ticketmaster, they give you more flexibility to sell or transfer your tickets. Plus, mobile tickets make getting in on game day a breeze. You can even customize your Ticketmaster app with, you can rep your favorite team's colors. Find tickets today at Ticketmaster.com/NFL. I also mentioned earlier, like, if you guys jump in the listener league, again, you get yourself 1 month free of RG Premium. If you happen to take that down, you can use that 1 month free of RG Premium to not just use it for football, but for basketball. It is basketball season. I want to say unofficially 7-8 days away. I think next Thursday night is tip-off. It's kind of an appetizer slate. Typically, it's a Thursday night, just a few games or so, and then they really get going on Friday night. But the NBA DFS is back, and with it, the amazing suite of premium offerings are here at RotoGrinders. For a limited time, you can lock in a full season of NBA Premium at a $50 discount. Everything from lineup HQ access, up to the minute premium projections and ownership. Fantasy pick'em tool for prize picks, underdog. If you like to play on those sites, we have that as well. check out the link in the description for more information, as well as the listener league. The listener league link will be down there as well. All right, let's talk about our favorite quarterbacks we've not yet talked about just yet as far as those 3 main games. John, who is left? Who are we excited about at the quarterback position?
I'll give you the Daigle Desmond Ridder plays of the week if you want to spin down at quarterback and cross your fingers. I don't know I think we're going to get him. I think the reason why Brian Hoyer came into the game and placed a Garoppolo was just because, like we saw in Aiden O'Connell's first start, they didn't want to throw Aiden O'Connell like to the wolves, not being prepared. So Hoyer comes in and relieves him. But I think we may get Aiden O'Connell again. And it's a completely different situation than Khalil Mack eating him for lunch with 6 sacks against the Chargers in his first start. Even against that Chargers team, too, he went 5 of 10 on throws 10 yards downfield. But the Bears are 21st in pressure rate, 23rd in explosive pass play rate, and Kirk Cousins this past week is the only quarterback who hasn't reached 18 fantasy points against the Bears all year long. It's such a better spot, and he's just down there as the cheapest quarterback. He's cheaper than Sam Howell, Tyrod Taylor. He's cheaper than Tyson Bagent. Like, Aiden O'Connell's kind of hanging around down there. So, like, why the hell wouldn't I give him a shot at that price? And then it is scary, of course, what Rich said about the Giants being so bad. I'm very aware. But Tyrod Taylor is playing this Commanders defense. I'm not saying I get there, but man, they have been so terrible. Since week 2, they've allowed a top 12 finish to every quarterback they've faced. Also, the 4th most yards per attempt and the 8th highest rate of 15-yard passes. And Taylor recorded 5 carries on Sunday night against Buffalo. So he has a higher floor than perceived, too. So those are some little cheapy options. Again, it's only Wednesday. I still don't know if it's more optimal to pay down at quarterback and get everything else or pay up. Trying to figure it out. I'm going to see where the field goes on Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. But right now, I think those are 2 valid cheap options in tournaments.
Yeah, and we're not even sure, like you said, at a Wednesday night, who's even quarterbacking. We're not. It could be Daniel Jones. It could be.
I just talked about a guy who may be on the bench. Yeah, of course.
We'll see. But either way, theoretically, there is an opportunity. What do you have for me, Rich, as far as some potential quarterbacks?
We talked about most of the guys. I think Stafford's in play still, too. I just think they're going to have to throw a lot more this week, given the running back situation. And when the Steelers haven't gotten pressure on the opposing quarterback, they are 29th in yards per pass attempt. They're 27th in rating allowed. They've allowed 7 passing touchdowns. Really wonky splits. Stafford has the same splits. Like, basically, when he's kept clean, he's been incredible. And when you get pressure on him, he's kind of folded. And then only on DraftKings, I think you can play Jordan Love. FanDuel, I don't think you can play him. I mean, geez, if he's priced there, like, I don't think you can play him. 5.8 though on DraftKings, he's definitely still on board, because Love's biggest issue is if you just breathe on him, like, it's just a disaster. The dude is so skittish. He's 13 of 38 when pressured on the season, 22.3 rating, 3.8 yards per pass attempt. When he's kept clean, he's at least like around base averages, 62.1% completion rate, 94.1 rating. Denver's 30th in pressure rate. It's the only way that, like, say, you can kind of like boost him up. But yeah, but FanDuel wasn't having it. FanDuel ain't letting you slide him through. But that's really it. But I think I'm going to more focus on, Lamar. And then from like a cash perspective, probably just play one of the Kansas City Charger guys from a cash lane, or Geno.
John, you mentioned O'Connell. Who do you pair him with? Do you feel okay about Adams? Like, he's been bad. Is it the rib? Like, well, what's going on with him? Do we think is it the shoulder, right? He's dealing with a shoulder. I don't know if that's a correlation or causation thing. Yeah.
He had an ankle injury a couple weeks ago too. And like, he's still out there. He's like Chris Olave. They're still out there running every single route, but it's just clear that they're pretty banged up. Even Adams a couple weeks ago in this post-game presser said he's been playing through the injury. And it kind of, you can see it in their targets and their target share, who they're targeting instead. So honestly, in terms of like pricing, again, you just go to Aiden O'Connell and Michael Mayer and then call it a day.
Yeah.
And spend up everywhere else.
Yeah. You get to spend up, you have a salary to delegate elsewhere. But yeah, Adams at 8-2. And of course, in tournaments and yada, yada, the matchup's fine. And certainly he could feel great and he could put up 150, wouldn't shock any of us. But it seems like he's legit hurting. And there's no discount as far as the price. He's still 8-2 on
Plus,
DK.
Like, even on this slate with no Dolphins, there are still these expensive guys we want to get up to at wide receiver. I can't imagine going in without Cooper Kupp this week. Not to mention a couple others we'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about Kupp in a second. He's going to be so heavily owned, like for sure, and rightfully so. They did raise his price, but still not enough, I'm sure. But running backs we've not yet discussed. Rich, you introduced some running backs who you kind of breezed through some of the guys earlier that may or may not break your dreams, but yeah,
it's a really rough, kind of running back slate.
Yeah.
Like what to do with it? Do you pay for Eckler? Like I said, I'm waiting to see like kind of Gibbs practices in full. I'm waiting to see Aaron Jones's status. Obviously, he'd be in kind of like a pretty good spot. We're talking about Pacheco probably being a really popular, play across all avenues. Josh Jacobs is kind of in that Joe Mixon zone. Like, do you ever feel good kind of clicking it? I will say when O'Connell started his first game 3 weeks ago, he targeted Jacobs a season high 11 times. So, and the Bears have quietly been good against the run. They're only allowing 3.5 yards per carry to running backs, sixth in the league, but they're allowing 16.1 receiving points per game to opposing running backs. So maybe there's some correlation there. If O'Connell starts, you get a little bit the dump off city, but like, man, Jacobs is giving you no explosives. He's really just out there getting, like I said, the Mixon treatment where like no one else is just touching the football in the backfield. So he pops in optimals and like you keep trying to talk yourself into it, but like really, what are you getting out of it? I keep wondering if he shows up for me on the slate, but I'm just like, is it just another Mixon situation, right? Like, do I even want to keep playing this guy?
Early ownership is really, really flat, by the way, or at least I shouldn't say ownership, but like the optimals I ran. Do you want an ugly name, John? That's 31%, hitting 31% of my TK optimals to start on a Wednesday night. Ramondre Stevenson, who's just been massively disappointing. That's what everybody's going to say, right? But he is pretty cheap. If you want to say something positive, he's 5.6 now on DK, 6.6 on FanDuel. But yeah, it's a hard sell for sure. Yeah, I guess that's a quick no. What about you as far as running backs? How about the Bears, right? What's the situation there like? Because I think a lot of people want to play Roschon Johnson, but he's still in the concussion protocol. We'll see if he's not back. I guess back to Foreman. They're going to have to run the ball with Badgett, I would assume, but the Raiders probably know that too. Like 10 guys in the box. I don't know.
I know, baby. Shepard's finest is going to wing that thing.
Well, what is the Shepherd nickname? Does anybody know top of the head? What do they call
That's a great question.
The Shepherd what?
That's a great question.
I'll talk about Roschon while you look that up, Rich. If you can work.
I'm not going to look it up, but
Dean, you look it up. I'll talk about Roschon.
Tell me anything and I'll believe it.
Okay, because I do think I like Roschon a little bit more.
He's not going to play.
Than a lot. You don't think you think he's going to stay in concussion protocol?
Yeah, I heard on the sidelines last week he's not even. I don't know, and he's still inside. I wouldn't even I would just wait and see if he plays before you even go down the rabbit hole.
All right, well, never mind. Screw it. At week 7, nothing matters.
Yeah, just wait and see, man. I would wait and see.
Deontay Foreman, 10 of his 15 carries came whenever Tyson Bagent came in the game, because they were really just trying to hide Bagent. And if you watch Bagent's interception, you see why. So, you can't get the Bagent. Even in the first half, Darrington Evans out-touched Deontay Foreman 7-6. So it's just a situation to avoid altogether. Everyone loses their ceiling if Bagent's under center. That's about it, man. I got nothing. I got nothing at running back.
You gave me enough time to get a quick Google in. Okay, so wait.
We need the Chuba Hubbard play that gets clarity over the course of the week. Maybe
Royce Freeman is 4,100 on FanDuel. It's
maybe it ends up
give me 5 touches. Give me 5 touches.
Roschon's our only hope, right?
Because Roschon's also the pivot off of Zach Evans. That's why it makes sense.
Are we doing anything with Jerome Ford?
If Kareem Hunt's out, absolutely.
Is there a decent chance of that happening?
I don't know. It's only Wednesday. We had a DNP today. We don't know.
Okay.
Because they split touches. Kareem Hunt or Ford out touched him 19-15, ran just 14 routes to 13 routes, and that was out of the bye. Kareem Hunt out touched Ford 3-1 on the opening drive. It was a clear timeshare. Jerome Ford, we talked about this in the past. He's a wide receiver in college. We think he's an every down back, but we need now Hunt out of the way, since otherwise it's a split. And I think a lot of people are Amari Cooper Dean, is popping in optimals too, right?
Let's see. I'm still looking at Shepherd University.
It's that hard to find the mascot.
So number one is Zay Flowers, then Cooper Kupp, then Josh Palmer, then Marquise Brown, Christian Watson, who I think a lot of people are going to like this week. Cooper is not. No, he's not very popular. At least I'm on DK for what it's worth, but yeah.
He always is kind of a. He's always in kind of like a nebulous price zone.
Yeah,
talk about him.
Kind of a no man's land.
All right, I guess should I segue to Amari Cooper then, or do you want to talk about another running back?
I'm just naming. I was just naming running backs. The guys that are actually running backs. That's all I know.
By the way, it's the Rams. Shepherd Rams, apparently.
That's way less. I'm kind of disappointed, actually.
Yeah, I thought it would be like the Banana Slugs or something like that, but unfortunately, that's not the route they went. Shout out to is that like UCSB or something like that? I'm not sure. It's one of the California schools out there, the Banana Slugs. Okay. Receivers. Let's segue to it. You want to talk about Cooper a little bit more there, John, or you want to talk about okay, go ahead. Sell me on Cooper.
And in my Wednesday tournament optimals, which don't matter because it's Wednesday, but Amari Cooper is popping. And we kind of have a double-edged sword here because for his career, his splits against man coverage compared to zone have been pretty drastic. But honestly, when you see a 24% target share from PJ Walker, now faces a defense that has allowed at least one, and on two occasions, two different receivers to score at least 13 PPR points, you just play the guy. And so I think it's a great spot for Amari Cooper this week. Christian Watson you talked about, but just to add more context, the Broncos, you could do whatever you want against them, but they're also allowing a 76% completion rate on throws 10 yards downfield. For reference, the next closest team is the Bills at 65%. And it's Watson now, who we haven't even seen at full strength, but through 2 games, he's earned 7 of his 11 targets 10 yards downfield. Like, it's kind of the perfect mismatch. So I love playing Watson. Cooper Kupp, I think it's as simple as saying 35% and 43% of the team's targets in his last 2 games. Also, the Steelers are allowing the 7th highest rate of 15-yard passes. It's like Rich hinted at, as long as Stafford stays upright. Even last week, Stafford's number should have been a lot better, but he had those 2 drop touchdowns, one by Puka and then one by Tyler Higbee. And then I hinted at Darius Slayton. You don't have to play Tyrod, but I think Darius Slayton's a good play. Giants shook up their 11 personnel entirely on Sunday night. It was still Slayton leading with 87% of routes run on their dropbacks. And then it went to Jalen Hyatt and then Wan'Dale Robinson. They basically got rid of Isaiah Hodgins, who only ran 11 routes. Sterling Shepard was active, but ran 0 routes. And last week, 60% of Slayton's targets came 20 yards downfield from Tyrod Taylor. And the Commanders are literally dead last with 11.7 yards per catch allowed to opposing receivers from the boundary. So we ask who's going to continue this trend, like Drake London, of being a receiver to reach over 100 yards in every game since week 2 against the Commanders. My guess would be Darius Slayton, and probably a lot more people are going to play Wan'Dale Robinson for his dinky little 3.5-yard depth of target floor. So I like Darius Slayton quite a bit.
I was going to ask you just that because Wan'Dale is 3.8, Slayton's 3.7, and you prefer Slayton. Is he your favorite receiver under 4K? I'm not sure if you've gotten that far as
compared to ownership. Yes, so far. I also like JSN, but people love playing rookies. I mean, you just can't get away from rookies ever. So those are my 2 favorite cheap plays.
And you mentioned the Watson thing. It feels like this is the week where he kind of has to do. This is the week where he's finally going to get there. It feels like it lines up perfectly at a pretty good price as well.
I don't know who survives the, as Rich said, the Jordan Love roller coaster. I don't know who's going to stand. I don't know who stands the test of time ultimately, because he does look like he doesn't have the ceiling of Josh Allen, of course, but he looks like rookie year Josh Allen, which you have to watch it because you just don't know what the hell he's going to do ever. But Christian Watson is the one standing out the most for sure because he's the only one that can really get downfield there.
Rich, what do you want to add to the conversation? And just a quick thought, Deontay Johnson, we're expecting him back. Is he going to be full go? Do we assume he's full go? Because 5K seems a little bit cheap.
Both sites he's pretty cheap. He's 5K, 6K, which
that's interesting.
Which at least at that price, you can entertain it, right? Before he was injured, he was targeted on 26% of his routes, was over 2 yards per out run. He was like a real popular kind of like redraft pick for a lot of people, like a regression candidate guy. So, maybe that helps. Maybe just having all the guys back will help Kenny Pickett, another guy that we're just like, we don't really have a lot of faith in, but like to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, they haven't had a healthy offense all year. Like this is like the first time since week 1 they're going to have all their guys out there. So maybe, I'm definitely not getting to Kenny Pickett, but Deontay's price is definitely for 5K on DraftKings. Like, sure, I'm like, push back there. Who else did we have? Drake London's still pretty cheap. I mean, the Falcons are low key really bad. Only the Jets and the Giants have led for fewer rate of snaps than the Falcons. And even though they still are below pass rate expectation, 8% that is, they're now 15th in dropbacks per game because they're bad. They're a bad real football team. So like they have to throw the football. And we're starting to see some of the talent that they actually have accrued get targets. Because there's one thing, and we used to always highlight, like, look at Drake London's target share, look at Kyle Pitts' air yard share, but they were running 20 pass routes a game.
Yeah.
Now they're averaging 39 dropbacks per game, and now we're starting to see like they actually have some talented players. Like we knew that these guys were talented. They're actually having to throw the football a little bit. So like London's price is still really cheap, especially on DraftKings. I like him. One thing about this slate that's pretty interesting, I don't know if it'll go overlooked because we didn't talk about it, but like we have a slate. The Bills are here still. Like Stephon Diggs is absolutely roasted, Bill Belichick in his career. Like, the narrative, Belichick takes away the team's number one opposing wide receiver. That has not been the case. And in these matchups, the Patriots they played a lot of aggressive defense. They played a lot of man coverage. They played a lot of single high looks. They've lost basically every cornerback that they've had this year. That's why they added J.C. Jackson. Diggs is on a 4-game run of 100 yards. He's got 6 catches in every game this year. Just Josh Allen's dig stacks might get us there this week, right? Like then maybe go overlooked.
We chasing Kendrick Bourne as a run back in that game.
I mean, I guess if you have to.
You need Juju.
He's the only guy. He's the 2 highest scoring games that the receivers have had all year. So if you're going to pick a guy.
Yeah, you need Juju and Demario Douglas to be out. That's kind of what happened, is that the targets don't go anywhere else.
I will say, though, the Bills, because of all the injuries they've had defensively now, like it hasn't caught up to them because like the opponents like that they face since then. But like they just keep losing. They're another team that just loses a defensive starter every week now. And we saw with like Tre'Davious White out last year, they were vulnerable to wide receivers. And we have seen the 2 games since Jacksonville wide receivers they combined for a good game against them. And then last week, in context of like what the Giants receivers have done all year, that was like an explosion on Sunday night against them. So there's opportunity, I still think, for maybe us to be a little bit slow to saying like, oh yeah, the Bills are going to give up some more production now just because of the talent they've lost defensively from each level. Losing Daquan Jones, the defensive line, is a big deal. Losing Matt Milano at linebacker is a huge deal. And losing Tre'Davious White in the secondary is a massive deal. So there could be more pushback opportunity for the Bills, as we move forward and get on it a little bit early. So I think he's in play. There's a lot of guys. I mean, I think Terry McLaurin is fine if you want to get involved in that game with Daigle. You just bring it back on each side. Terry McLaurin is number 1 in target rate against the blitz. We always talk about just looking at guys that are getting targets against the Giants because they blitz so heavy. And then if you can stomach it, Sean Payton is trying to highlight Jerry Jeudy so they could trade him. He's been awful, but the Packers are getting crushed by slot wide receivers. So if you can just stomach it in your Jordan Love bringbacks, maybe it's the Jerry Jeudy kind of get traded week.
But like you said, no trades never happen in the NFL.
No,
nobody ever gets traded.
Nothing cool happens.
McCole Hardman got traded. Cool. That's the coolest.
McCole Hardman. Those are the dudes that get traded. McCole Hardman.
But like Jerry Jeudy getting traded is not even that cool. It's noteworthy, I suppose. But like, yeah, that's not even happening. And they got to open up some stuff for
if Jerry Jeudy, like the favorites, the Colts, like what do you do if Jerry Jeudy goes to the Colts? You don't even remember where you were that day. Who cares?
Then theoretically it's mid season, but it's probably not. It's probably not mid season because
never mid season, unfortunately.
Yeah. Fool me once, never gonna fool me again. I don't know how that phrase go. Butchered phrase. But yeah. Hey, John, we haven't talked about, and like we don't do a lot of slate dynamic stuff, but I was curious to get your thought on this because you always kind of like point this stuff out. It's a 10-game slate. We've already talked about how bad it is. But like at 4 o'clock and 1 o'clock, have you seen the 6 1 o'clock games, John?
I haven't. I actually even thought about late swap. That's something that I do sometimes forget about by a Wednesday.
Look at the first 6 games, and just run them off.
They spread the games out this week again. Like, this is what we've been asking for.
Yes. But all like the best games amongst the games we have basically are all, it's backloaded. It's kind of the point I'm making. I thought John might have a thought of that, but the first 6 games, like red zone's going to be ugly for the first 3 hours. I think we'll see, but
you'll see.
Yeah, well, yes, you're going to be watching the Bears.
We're going to be watching all the punts. We're going to see all the punts.
Punts matter for sure.
Yeah, because to your point, Dean, if you pay up at quarterback, if you pay up for Josh Allen stacks or Lamar stacks, you're going to know what you can play by the afternoon because the chalk's coming in the afternoon. That's what makes the slate fun. See, this is the kind of thing I unlock by Friday. This is good.
All right. What's not good is tight ends. Tight ends we've not yet talked about just yet, John. What do you have for the people?
Michael Mayer. I think we've said his name 6 times on this show already.
It's Halloween month?
Yes, that's true. Don't remind me because we're going to have to watch Trick or Treat in the next segment. But his routes increased, 67% of routes run. Again, it's a totally different environment for Aiden O'Connell. And this is assuming Aiden O'Connell starts. Either way, though, Michael Mayer's target share bumped up to a 19%, led the team receiving yards as well. Pretty simple as we target everyone against the Bears, but tight ends especially. So it's a good spot. If you don't want to play Christian Watson, you can probably get to Luke Musgrave, who's still a reasonable salary. As you said, he's popping as an optimal play. Even last game before the bye, remembered he got benched for a couple series because he got a penalty called on him, and Matt LaFleur got pissed off. So his route rate went a little bit down, but before that, outside of concussion, he was in and on a route on over 80% of dropbacks. Broncos also allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So it's just a situation we want to target altogether. And we talked about Kelsey and Andrews. Other than that, Rich, please take it away.
Go for it, Rich.
Listen, I play the optimal. I let Dean tell me who to play. I lock in. Listen, the thing is, it's money. The AI is working. Kyle Pitts last week. Dalton Schultz 2 weeks ago. Dalton Schultz is like since the AI pointed out Dalton Schultz, he's been unstoppable. He's been absolutely unstoppable.
Yeah.
And since Kyle Pitts, unstoppable. So, Dean, who am I playing this week at tight end?
The top 5 tight ends as of right now on a Wednesday night in the optimizer, 52% Mark Andrews, 35% Musgrave.
All right, good. I want to play Mark Andrews.
18% Mayer, 16% Kelsey, 10% Laporta. So
can you filter it? How many Andrews teams also had Zach Evans, though? I need to know if that salary is going to prevent me because I ain't playing Zach Evans.
Can you X out Zach Evans and then run the optimal and see if Andrews still shits out?
The very first one does not have Zach Evans, but it does have Luke Musgrave in the flex. So I don't know what you want to do with that.
All right, well, let's cancel that too.
Looks like we got to play Jalen Hyatt or one of those Giants Jamoks on that team.
The next one has Dawson Knox and Mark Andrews, so it's not getting a lot better.
We got to work on this.
And Ramondre Stevenson. So yeah, it has Cooper Kupp too, of course, because like every optimizer, almost every lineup probably early is going to have Kupp, and I wonder if getting Kupp and Diggs, how hard that is. We'll see. Obviously, we don't know all the pieces just yet. But I think Diggs could be an interesting pivot away.
That's what I would like to do. I think I prioritize them over Austin Eckler, but we need a little more value to open up outside of Zach Evans at running back.
By the way, in chat, Per Mars saying Judy to the Detroit or Carolina will be interesting. Carolina would not. Like, what's the point of that? Isn't Carolina like over this season? Why are they trading for a mid receiver?
Yeah, they would have to be, because whoever trades for Judy in that situation, if it's not a rental, has to sign him to a new contract. And is that like really the direction Carolina wants to go? Are they like, is their first move with this rookie quarterback contract like maxing out Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah. And is Steve Smith right, Rich? Judy's just kind of a...
No, I don't know. I mean...
You're not handing the dirt guy?
I thought it was... I thought it was he got like applauded. I thought it was pretty shitty of him though.
I thought so too, man.
I saw that reaction and I was like, that's the man that needs therapy. Like that was literally
too aggressive.
It was like a couple weeks ago when what's his name made the run at Zach Wilson too, Rodney Harrison, and like it was very similar to that.
Well, he was saying it to his teammate too. He was saying, or the opponent. He was saying that guy didn't play. Tell us he's terrible. We know he's terrible. And that's
right.
Yeah.
But I saw
was his point right though? What maybe it wasn't delivered as politely as
well, yeah. I mean, he hasn't lived up his potential. I mean, they're all like that situation's a quagmire, man. Like who's thriving there?
Yeah. All right.
You should do your job, but you know, there's
a way to do it without a take it
right, especially as a former player. Like that's kind of an unwritten rule. It's like I know you're a big fan of wrestling, Dean. So as you know, in wrestling, it's kind of like a unwritten rule that you never talk as a wrestler. You never analyze poorly other wrestlers. Like you just respect the sport and understand the situation. That's kind of like when you play football and you get hired, even though most of the time you're not even good at that job. And I can say that. Like if you get hired, it's the unwritten rule to not then like literally bash that individual because you probably went through that. Like Steve Smith, as great as he was, went through all these different situations with Carolina for his career, despite being like an MVP candidate with Jake Delhomme. And then you just like analyze it correctly. And to me, that was just the most immature thing I've seen all year.
The only thing I would counter is like your general, like, straight out of the factory, analyst. It's so boring. And I don't watch the Terry Bradshaw or the Jimmy Johnson or whatever, Tony Dungy. Like those guys they're so uninteresting and they never say anything interesting. And at least what he said was interesting. And maybe he was right. He had a good point. Maybe he didn't deliver it in the nicest possible way. But I don't know. I just thought it was more interesting than most of the other talking heads.
I lean towards chemistry, like the TNT pregame, postgame show.
Sure.
That's why I also think it doesn't teach me anything. But I'm not listening to pregame and postgame shows to learn anything. That's not the point. Like even so, that the Fox Terry Bradshaw thing, like I think it's funny. I think it's fun. So I'll just put it on the background. I am doing my own research. I'm not trying to learn anything from those guys.
Yeah. By the way, it's so random you mentioned wrestling, and we're going to talk about movies in a second. For no particular reason, last night, as I went to sleep, I watched a movie called Money Plane. Are you aware of Money Plane? You have to be. This is not an endorsement before I get into it. It's not an endorsement, but Money Plane stars Adam Copeland, better known as Edge.
Of course. Yeah.
Not just Edge, but it stars Kelsey Grammer, because of course, why wouldn't Kelsey Grammer be a part of Money Plane? And not one, not two, but three Lawrence brothers. Joey Lawrence, you might remember him from such things as Blossom. Matthew Lawrence, you might remember him from such things as Boy Meets World. The other Lawrence, I don't know where you remember him from. Never heard of the guy, but he's directing it. So there's three Lawrence brothers. There's Denise Richards. There's somebody else kind of goofy. It's like, where did this person come from? Thomas Jane, for no particular reason. Again, not an endorsement, not a good movie, but there you go. Money Plane.
Which tells us you stopped down to watch it.
Well, you ever just watch something like, I want to see how terrible this is. Because like a lot of people went into the decision to say, yeah, let's make this. Here's millions of dollars. Go make Money Plane. Call Kelsey Grammer.
This is what I love about you, Dean, man. Like you won't watch Jurassic Park, but like, but Money Plane, because of the millions of dollars they put into Money Plane, not the hundreds of $1 million they put in to create those dinosaurs.
Are you not sold on Money Plane? Are you not interested? I believe it was on.
I remember it coming out. I did not watch it, but I do remember when it came out.
All right. Hey, that's it for NFL analysis. I believe we're done. Yes, we're gonna stick around, do a little movie talk. Feel free to hang with us and talk about some movies, but do not like sit around and wait. When are you guys going to talk about the Colts? Like that's it. We're done, right? No more football takes, Rich.
I definitely don't have takes on the Colts either, for sure.
I mean, Gardner Minshew was shaving points in the first half. Like we're not going there.
And that running back, I just picked a random team, but that running back situation still kind of.
I will say this: the Colts are like one of the few fun, like in this construct of 6 weeks of 2023 football where everything goes under. The Colts are one of like the few overs teams we got because their defense sucks, their quarterback turns the ball over, and they play fast. Like they even transitioning to Gardner Minshew, they still are one of the faster teams in terms of tempo. So they are kind of like the one of the few cocktails. Now, will PJ Walker and Gardner Minshew combine to get us there? But probably not. But the Colts are like a team weekly. We do look for some of these games to kind of be a little bit have more points than maybe expected.
And we're assuming Watson's not going to be back again, despite that whole thing seems to be a mess.
There's
going to be a story coming back at some point, I think, but who knows? Supposedly he was cleared by doctors weeks ago, but all right. By the way, that's the game. By the way, Rich, you mentioned the Blitz, Derek Carty, the Blitz game level factors. Indy Cleveland is projected for the most game plays.
Yeah, I look at the Colts I always look at the Colts every week for like game stacks. I just don't know if this week it's not particularly great, but like Daigle said, maybe we need to get Amari Cooper in. We try to find something, but that Browns defense, man, it's hard. It's hard to really kind of.
They're good. Yeah, they won a game against San Fran. I know San Fran players were kind of falling left and right, but shout out to Cleveland and needed a couple missed field goals, I think. But
I mean, bring on producers. The Brock Purdy discourse just can like never like chill for like a week.
I'm not saying like the Browns defense didn't play good, but the ball was clearly slipping out of his hand most of the time in the rain too. Not only that, but the perfect storm to lose like your 3 best players in game. Like it was just, and yet he still drove the field against all those odds to win the game. And their kicker they drafted in the 3rd round just happened to miss the field goal. Otherwise, we're probably having a different conversation.
Man, I was on Ayuk as a tournament play last week, and he should have had 150 yards in that game.
Yeah, Purdy did miss him, but again, it was the perfect storm.
He had one too where he put down where it could have been like a 60-yard touchdown. He actually got behind Ward.
Oh, that long 3rd down. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a shot. I mean, it was a tough play. I don't know if he got credit a drop or not. He probably didn't. Because I don't think Puka got credit for a drop either. But like those are plays like you count on those guys to make more than they don't.
Jordan Addison had that same like Puka play, not in the end zone, but he had like a 25-yarder. He just dropped.
Yeah. Down the sideline. Yeah. They don't go as drops, but like that level of talent, like they're going to make those plays more than they didn't. And it felt like there's a lot of those last week where like those plays weren't made.
That's where we're at, Dean, is that we're talking about those missed plays in 2023 as opposed to like the good plays wide receivers have made.
Analytics have to say that like you're not supposed to draft the kicker in the 3rd round, right? I'm assuming. I mean, I haven't dug into it, but does that sound like a reasonable thought or no?
Especially, you're definitely not supposed to. It's very clear not to, especially when like you need offensive line help. Although to his credit, Kyle Shanahan has been quite incredible at finding like undrafted free agents or the next guy up and just playing his scheme of hiding offensive linemen to this point. But yeah, you're definitely not supposed to do that. It's like a waste of a pick.
What Janikowski was like a 1st rounder for the Raiders, right? Didn't Al Davis?
He was 17th overall.
Jesus, that's just crazy. And then, but who was the guy? Was it from Florida a couple years ago? It was like he was in the league for like a year or 2.
Aguayo. Are you talking about Aguayo?
Yeah.
Was it
Florida
Tampa?
State?
Florida State. Okay, yeah. Okay, I knew there was a Florida tie-in somewhere.
Yeah. He went to Tampa Bay.
Oh, that's just wild how fast. Typically, it doesn't happen, but yeah. There's a kicker for UCF. His name is Boomer, and he's really, really good. He's got a booming leg, and I don't know if he's going to get drafted or not. I know nothing about college football, but I know Boomer is a really good kicker. So circle him for your drafts in a couple of years.
Even like Evan McPherson was like, I think he was like the #1 rated kicker coming out of the class, but even he was taken in the 5th round, and he's been fine. He's been great for the Bengals.
There's been a few guys, and we've seen too a lot of those guys. Like you go back to some of the earlier picks. I think Nugent was like a 2nd rounder, and like they struggle to start their careers and then they end up being good. That happened to Daniel Carlson because the Vikings took Daniel Carlson pretty high, and like he was really bad his first year, and they cut him, and he's been like great since then.
I could just compare it to closers where like you gotta get a feel and you can probably find someone to ride.
You kick from all like the dumbass hash marks in college, like are still like like that doesn't make any sense. But
the hash marks and taking a kneel and getting it counted as a carry still 2 of the worst college rules probably ever.
One more random question: if you knew like what Justin Tucker's career was going to be, is he worth like the #1 overall pick? Like, does he make it that much of a difference?
No, the #1 overall pick.
No, if you pick him #1 overall, you get the best kicker in the league for the next 15 years, whatever it is.
The best kicker in the league doesn't make a difference.
Okay, I don't know.
He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, compared to like replacement level, you just like keep on, because that's like comparing it to Adam Vinatieri. You just kind of find your guy.
And there was that weird year where there was a kicker who was the MVP of the NFL season. I don't know. I can't remember what happened there or why he was the NFL MVP.
Yeah, Mark Mosley. I think it was him and Lawrence Taylor shared MVP, right? It was Mark Mosley.
Why? What was the backstory in that?
And I think someone's gone back. I think he actually wasn't even when in retrospect, in terms of analytics, he wasn't even that good of a kicker that year.
It's the weirdest thing.
Honestly, as far as I'm concerned, let a kicker win it this year too. They probably deserve more than these quarterbacks.
Or a punter. A punter's being used pretty heavily this year as well.
Jake Elliott, give it to somebody. Who cares?
Let's knock out our movie. I won last week as far as the listener league, so I assigned Caliber. Again, not the most uplifting of movies. I should just say,
I guess it makes sense that it's Caliber now that I've watched the movie, that it would be Caliber.
Yes, it took me. I had the research and I finally found somebody saying it. I'm like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That's Caliber. I thought it was Calibre or Caliber, but yeah, it's Caliber. I would just say go in as cold as possible. I don't know if you care about spoilers. Probably just stop listening. Thanks for listening. We do appreciate it. But yeah, your thoughts, John. I'll throw it to you first. Caliber. What do you got for me?
Now let's actually go to Rich first because we started texting each other. I was actually about to text him, and then he texted me when I looked down at my phone. I was like, "Oh, we're on the same page here." You reached out first, so go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, this one wasn't for me at all. Just I like the scenery. I like that, seeing some of the Scotland scenery. That was cool. The cinematography was good. Other than that, just very slow, predictable, very boring. I thought it was well made. That was really it. I thought the two leads were kind of underwhelming in terms of kind of the heaviness stuff that they had to deal with. But other than that, it was just very predictable. Dean, we talk about all the time. The first thing that checks me out of a movie is when I see some non-criminals try to do some criminal shit. And immediately you knew exactly what was going to happen with that story. The second that, spoilers, I guess, are going to occur here. When his buddy shot the dad of the kid, it was I knew exactly what was going to play out, the whole thing. And then they tried to throw you with a random curveball to end the movie, but just was so nonsensical by the time they do the stuff with the daughter and the dad that I was just it was so forced that it didn't even really make any sense. So this one for me on the grave scale is an Irv Smith. You want to believe it's good, but it's just not.
6.8 on IMDb, 95% amongst the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 79% for the audience.
I can see this being a big critic movie, where critics would like this.
Yeah, only 21, by the way, for what it's worth. It's a small sample, so just one critic did not like it. The audience over 1,000 have it at 79%. John, I guess you're on the side of Rich. You were not a fan of Caliber.
It wasn't bad. I think it was better than American Animals, but it did have that cliche leftover ending where it wanted to be deeper than I thought it was. It felt like that kind of ending where you're staring at the camera and you're kind of left with an open-ended decision, which I really just think boils down to his mental health, but maybe that's just my personal view of it. I thought that was a little bit forced. It just kind of came out of nowhere, honestly. So, yeah, it wasn't for me personally.
Yeah, they weren't dealing with any of those themes really the whole movie.
Yeah.
And they just tried to make it, it got a little pretentious at the end.
Well, I think it was just showing that he's obviously changed without saying whatever. I don't know if we're giving any spoilers away at this point, but his life is never going to be the same.
As Rob would want, if Rob was here,
yes,
if Rob was here, we should preface it with saying, "Hey, spoilers coming up." So go ahead, Dean.
Well, yeah, after he had to, he killed a child accidentally. There was another death, and there was another death, and his best friend is no longer there. As basically a way to kind of the town is happy as they possibly could be, I suppose. And he got to live his life in the end, but it wasn't the same life he was used to. And obviously, him having a kid and taking a kid away was one of the themes as well. And it was even months later. Obviously, it was 6 months later. He still had his baby. His wife was pregnant at the time when the incident happened, so he was still living with it. He's going to live with that the rest of his life. And it's not an upper. It's not a feel good movie, as Michael in chat says. It was heavy. It's definitely a heavy movie. And maybe next time, if I win again, I will go with something more fun, something lighter. But yeah, maybe that is on me. Maybe I'm saying something about myself by not.
I just want, like I said, I'm starting to question if like there's like I need to reach out and just check in you like weekly. Just Dean, how you doing, man? How's everything your way?
As I told Rich, like at this point, I just want Sideways or John Wick for every movie in my life. Just make it one of those or close to one of those, and I'll be happy.
Is John Wick still mad about the dog? Is that still what we're talking about in the fourth one? I mean, obviously, it's terrible what happened to his dog, but is that still that's that what triggers the story?
Have you not seen it? Have you not seen the fourth?
I saw the one with Boban. I think that's the third one. I saw the first one.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw the second one. I've not seen the fourth.
Oh, buddy, you need to watch the fourth one.
Yeah.
We introduce a fun new character too. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. John Wick's amazing.
There's something else in that John Wick world that's on Peacock now. I guess if you're into that, you're aware of it.
I've watched
Continental or something. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's about the origin of the hotel keeper's life, like how he came to own that particular Continental.
I will watch the new John Wick. I believe it's coming out. It'll be coming out soon.
Good.
It's like 3 hours long, isn't it?
It is long.
It's fun.
Yeah. If ever John Wick has a revenge game, like nobody's more vengeful than John Wick.
I actually, because again, those are
the
the kind of
movies, a series of revenge games.
Those are the kind of two movies I target. So I went back this past week because I leave things on in the background, and a listener of the show actually suggested I watch all 3 Equalizers with Denzel. And so I went back and I just left. I had never seen them. So I went back and watched all 3 Equalizers. Like,
they're in your lane.
Like he found my flavor. This is awesome.
I watched Man on Fire recently with Denzel. That was spectacular.
I rewatched it again too the other night. Yeah, it still holds up. It's great.
Yeah, I feel like Equalizer's in that realm. I've not yet watched 2 is available to stream and 1 isn't. So I don't want to just jump into 2. Much like I was apprehensive to jump in like the Friday the 13th part.
No, you're good. You were good.
I don't know the Equalizer backstory, but
you don't even. You could jump into number 3. I think number 3 is the best one, honestly, and you could jump right in. You don't need a backstory. You kind of figure it out that Denzel is just a badass. That's all the movie is.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna check those out once they become available. And I have stream everything, and like if I don't want to spend the $5, if I can afford it, like $5 more, like it adds up.
The NFL's already trying to get a monopoly on us. They're trying to. There's some games that are going to be on Peacock. They've got coming up, and it's like so now you don't. Not only do you have to have your Red Zone, Dean, or YouTube TV, they want you to get Amazon Prime. They want you to get Peacock. They want you to have the ESPN app. It's just it's everywhere.
But we are building out one of these windows for Killers of the Flower Moon. We are very excited.
Yeah. I mean, Scorsese and DiCaprio, I'm in. Like that's every time.
And De Niro, like it's odd.
Dean, will you go to the movies? Do you go to the movie theater?
I have not in a while, but I think I will for this. I think it's worth putting pants on for. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You got DiCaprio and you got Scorsese, and you said De Niro's in it as well. Okay, and also what's his name? The dude from Friday Night Lights and what's it called? Not just Friday Night Lights, but also from Breaking Bad. Not Matt Damon, but like
Jesse Plemons.
There you go. Yeah, I believe I saw him in the trailer as well. I'm definitely excited to see
who
that.
Is great in literally everything. Cast him in whatever role
we
you
talked
want.
about Black Mirror episodes, Dean. You would like his Black Mirror episode.
I'll watch that. Yeah, he's a really, really good actor. I enjoy most of the stuff he has done. All right. Is there anything else we should talk? Oh, we should mention next week. If you guys want to listen along or watch along with us, we kind of teased it a couple times. Producer Rob did win last week, so he's going to recommend Trick or Treat, not to be confused with.
And Rob is still like figuring out our flavor. Like he's not trying to. He gave us what was considered a good horror movie, and I think we kind of came back and kiboshed it. So he's trying to let us have a good time.
I like that dynamic of it, though. We were joking about, I was joking about, never even really trying to win the contest because you guys, Dean's just going to give me something I haven't watched. So it's like even if I don't like it, but you see, everyone's taste, man. Everyone's taste kind of show. So I think it's fun, man.
And we need a grade caliber.
I did. I gave it an Herb Smith.
Oh, okay. I didn't give it 4.9 for me.
That's out of 10.
Out of 10. 4.9.
Like IMDb style.
I gave American Animal 6.9. So compare that if you will.
For me, it's a solid B, maybe a B plus. I really like it.
Okay. Did suggest it.
Yeah, but I guess a B-ish. Yeah, at least a mid B. Mid B that's just a B, right? Yeah, because a B minus would be a low B. I do see that Anna Paquin and Brian Cox. Brian Cox, of course, from fame, McDonald's voiceover fame in his commercials, but I guess you know him best probably. 25th Hour is an incredible Brian. I think it's Brian Cox is in that movie, right? I think he's in that movie. But you know him, of course, as Logan Roy. Roy.
I'm about to say, I don't think he's known for the McDonald's commercials.
Logan Roy's never had a big.
He's had a defining role for his entire career just recently.
But you recognize that voice.
He says now, like when he meets people, like people like basically like will you tell me to fuck off? Like that's like the thing now. Like when he meets people, like will you tell me?
We did get in the same calendar year somehow in this amazing world. We got fuck off and yes chef in the same 365 days. Yes.
My God, what an incredible show. Hey, tell the people where they can find you on the old Twitter machine. We'll step aside. We'll get out of here and make way. Rich, you go first.
Yeah, sharpfootballanalysis.com. I write up every game, every player, and every game in detail with fun nuggets. Go check that stuff out over there.
Have you guys seen 25th Hour? Is that a movie you guys have not seen? Oh, you've seen it. Okay.
I've never seen 25th Hour.
I think we talked about it when we were talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman a few weeks ago. Whatever week we talked about Philip Seymour Hoffman, I think it came up.
All right. So you sign off on that one, though. You do like 25th Hour, Rich?
I do like 25th Hour. I like a lot that Brian Cox has a pretty great catalog as well. I believe he's in Adaptation, and Adaptation's a good movie. Do you like Adaptation, Dean?
Nick Cage, right?
I feel like that one might be one that you don't like.
I liked it. I know it was a critic's darling, and there was a famous director that was involved in it too. I can't recall who it was. It's not coming for some reason, but yeah, he played two different roles, like brothers and like a struggling writer. It was Chris. I can't remember the guy's last name, but yeah, it's a good movie. Adaptation. It's not something I've seen in a long time, but I definitely liked it. John, tell the people.
25th Hour came out at a time where like Barry Pepper looked like he was going to be a thing, and like he just cooled off after that.
Yes, because he was in the war movie, the Steven Spielberg war movie. He was he was in The Tower.
Yeah, Private Ryan.
There you go. Yeah, and that was a spectacular cast. And I don't know what happened to Barry Pepper, but he was kind of like the number one pick for the Bucks, the kicker. They're hanging out somewhere together.
It looked like Barry Pepper was about to pop. He was in Maris, right? Like the 61 movie, and then just like he's in Green Mile too. And then just kind of disappeared.
What happened to Barry Pepper? It's a good question.
I don't know, man. This is a great question. I hope he's doing well. I hope you're out there making some art, Barry Pepper.
I feel the same. John, what do you got? Tell the people where they can find you, the socials, all the deals.
You can find me watching Trick or Treat before next Wednesday. You can find me in the Logan Square Theater watching Killers of the Flower Moon on Friday evening. And 44.com, major discount going on this week if you would like to check it out. Also, free AMA week. So even our DFS Discord this upcoming week, check it out in my socials at NotJDaigle.com. I'll push it out there, but it's completely free if you're in Discord. So feel free to join.
Do appreciate everybody listening. Take down some money this week as far as week 7. That was week 7 of the NFL Pick 6 show. On behalf of producer Steve, producer Rob, you got John and Rich. I was Dean. Thanks for listening. Win something this week. We're out of here. Oh!